We were not made for shadows. We were not born to walk in fog. The soul was crafted in the image of God, and God does not dwell in darkness. There is something in us that aches for clarity, not just to see, but to understand. Not just to breathe, but to breathe freely, and yet we hide, we pull the curtains, we dim the truth. We tell ourselves we're not ready for the light, but the longer we stay in the dark, the less we remember what the light even looked like. Darkness is deceptive. It offers comfort without peace, silence without rest, escape without freedom. At first, the shadows feel safe. No one sees your scars there. No one notices your mistakes. You become invisible, but not free. You become hidden, but not healed. The lie of the enemy is this, that if God saw you clearly, he would walk away. But the truth is this, he already sees it all, and he's still calling you by name. The light doesn't come to shame you. It comes to cleanse you. It doesn't come to expose you. It comes to restore you. When you stand in the light of God, you don't stand accused. You stand invited, invited to come home, invited to be whole, invited to start again. Yes, the light shows your wounds, but it also shows the way out. Yes, it reveals your chains, but only so they can be broken. The longer you hide from the light, the more your mind drifts. The more your heart hardens, the more your soul forgets what freedom felt like, because darkness doesn't just blind you, it rewrites you. It changes the way you think, the way you love, the way you dream. But the light rewrites you too. It writes mercy into your failures. It writes hope into your past. It writes purpose into your pain. God is not waiting for you to clean yourself up in the dark. He's waiting for you to step into the light, just as you are. No pretense, no performance, just presence. You don't have to be perfect to walk in the light. You just have to be willing, willing to be seen, willing to be known, willing to be loved anyway. Remember this, the light isn't far. It never moved, you did, but every step back begins with surrender. Every moment of clarity begins with courage, and every lost heart finds its way, not by willpower, but by returning to the one who is the way. If you feel lost, don't hide deeper, don't dig your cave darker. Turn your face upward, open the door, step toward the light. It won't burn you, it will build you, it won't shame you, it will shape you. Because the light was never your enemy, it was your home and it still is. We often think of light as something simple, a glow, a flicker, a switch we flip, but light, real light, is more than visibility. It is understanding, it is meaning, it is purpose wrapped in clarity. You can see with your eyes and still be blind in your soul. You can walk in daylight and still stumble through life like you're lost in midnight. Because light is not just about what shines, it's about what guides, what reveals, what awakens, what reminds you who you are, and more importantly, whose you are. In Scripture, light is always connected to God's presence. Your word is a lamp to my feet, a light to my path, not a spotlight to the world, but a personal flame, just enough for your next step. When you walk in His light, you're not just seeing better, you're thinking clearer. You're feeling cleaner, you're living truer. The light of God doesn't just brighten your world, it corrects it. It shows what's out of place. It straightens what's been bent for years. It reveals the gap between who you're pretending to be and who you were created to be. That's why we often avoid it, because it doesn't just expose what's around us, it exposes what's within us. We say we want the truth, but truth requires change, and change costs comfort, and comfort is the idol we worship in the dark. But light isn't cruel, light is kind. It's the voice in the fog saying, "This is the way, walk in it." It's the whisper in the chaos saying, "You don't have to figure this out alone. You were never meant to walk this journey guessing. You were meant to be led. You were meant to have direction. You were made to move with purpose, not just movement, but meaningful movement." Have you ever noticed how the most lost people often look the busiest? Running here, rushing there, filling time, filling space, filling noise, but none of it leads anywhere, because without the light there's no compass, no destination, only drift. Drifting may feel like freedom, but it's really just disconnection. Disconnection from truth, from calling, from your identity in God. This is why people can have everything and still feel like they have nothing, because without the light, success feels empty, love feels temporary. Even peace feels counterfeit. The soul knows when it's off course, even if the mouth won't admit it, even if the mind suppresses it. There's a quiet ache in the soul that says, "This isn't it, this isn't home, this isn't what I was made for," and the light doesn't come to scold you. It comes to show you, to reorient you, to say, "Come back. Let me show you who you were before the confusion. Let me remind you of who you were before the masks, before the guilt, before the fear." And here's the most beautiful truth. The light isn't something you chase, it's something that finds you. God doesn't wait at the end of the road. He meets you in the middle of your wandering. He brings the lamp to your valley. He brings the clarity to your confusion. Even in the darkness, there's a voice. Even in the silence, there's a light still burning. But you must be willing to look up, willing to lift your head, willing to say, "I can't see on my own anymore." Because light is not just brightness. It is awareness. It is truth that makes you free. It is God saying, "Let there be light," not just in creation, but in you. When the light comes, you don't just see the path. You see why it matters. You don't just see the future. You see how your past is redeemed. You don't just see God, you remember who you were always meant to be in His presence. This is why you must stop running from the light, because the longer you hide from it, the more you forget the truth you were born to walk in. And without truth there is no direction, and without direction there is no freedom, only noise, only numbness, only shadows. But step into the light and everything begins to make sense again. The first time the light hits you, it's not gentle. It's honest, and sometimes honesty hurts before it heals. So we flinch, we step back, we retreat into what feels familiar, even if it's broken, because brokenness is predictable, and light is not. When you've spent years adjusting to the dark, the light feels intrusive. It feels like exposure. It feels like being caught, but you're not being caught. You're being called still. We run not because we love the dark, but because we're afraid of what the light will reveal. We think, if the light shows my weakness, will I still be loved? If the light uncovers my secrets, will I still be accepted? If the light touches my shame, will it crush me? So we build hiding places, disguised as success, disguised as busyness, disguised as confidence, disguised as "I'm fine." But the truth always waits, because light doesn't chase to shame you, it waits to save you. Still, hiding feels safe. It's the illusion of control. If I stay hidden, no one can hurt me, no one can leave me, no one can see me fall apart. But here's what hiding really does. It doesn't protect your peace. It delays your healing. It doesn't make the pain smaller, it just buries it deeper, and anything buried in darkness grows distorted. You start to believe lies. "I'm too far gone. I'll never change. This is just who I am now." You start confusing survival for purpose, noise for clarity, numbness for peace. And the longer you stay in hiding, the harder it becomes to remember what truth even feels like. Because when you hide from the light, you hide from yourself. You silence your soul. You lose the sound of God's voice, not because He stopped speaking, but because you stopped listening. Shame is a loud companion. It tells you to keep quiet. It tells you to smile through the storm. It tells you the light will only burn you. But shame is a liar, and light is not fire, it's freedom. When Adam and Eve sinned, they hid among the trees. They ran from the very God who walked with them daily, not because He changed, but because they did. Sin didn't make them unloved, it made them afraid, and fear drives us underground. It builds walls between us and grace, but grace doesn't knock, it calls. It doesn't say, "Where were you?" It says, "Where are you?" Because hiding does more than cover sin, it covers identity. It buries the image of God beneath layers of guilt, and guilt, left unchecked, becomes identity confusion. You stop thinking, "I did something wrong." You start thinking, "I am something wrong." That's the danger of the dark. Not just what it hides, but what it reshapes. You were made to live in truth, but truth feels foreign when lies have lived in you too long. And yet the light is still there, still waiting, still calling. Even while you hide, the light never forgets your name. Even in your silence, God is whispering, "Come out. I have more for you than this." But coming out takes courage. It takes saying, "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of hiding behind the version of me people expect. I want to be free, even if it's uncomfortable at first. Because yes, the light may sting, but it also heals. It may reveal scars, but it also shows that the wound is not fatal. You're still here, still breathing, still being pursued by mercy. The light doesn't wait for you to be ready. It waits for you to be willing, because you won't grow by hiding your truth. You grow by confronting it. You won't heal by protecting your image. You heal by surrendering your heart, and surrender doesn't mean weakness. It means you've stopped running. It means you're done being confused by darkness. It means you want clarity more than comfort, freedom more than appearance, healing more than hiding, because the longer you stay in the shadows, the more lost you become, not just from others but from yourself, from your purpose, from your Creator. But the moment you step into the light, even trembling, even uncertain, you will feel it, truth breaking through, clarity returning, confusion lifting, and you will realize you were never safer in the dark. You are just silent, and silence is not the same as peace. Only the light can give you that. We are not visitors to the light. We are not strangers to truth. We were born for it, formed by it, made in the image of the one who is light. The reason darkness feels heavy isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. You weren't designed to survive in shadows. You were created to thrive in truth. That's why hiding never satisfies. That's why secrets eat you from the inside out. That's why guilt makes your shoulders heavier than your past. Because the soul was not wired for darkness, it suffocates there. You don't just lose your way in the dark. You lose yourself. You start living half alive. Half known, half seen, and eventually that becomes normal, until your spirit forgets what it felt like to walk free. But deep inside, deeper than the doubt, deeper than the shame, deeper than the habit, there's still a flicker, a spark, a whisper, a voice saying, "This isn't who you are. This isn't where your story ends. You were made for more." That whisper is not your imagination. It's your origin calling you back. You were made for the garden, not for the grave. You were made to walk with God in the cool of the day, not to hide in fig leaves and fear. You were made for light. That's why the dark doesn't fit. That's why it feels like wearing clothes that don't belong to you. Living a story that was never yours, smiling with a mouth that wants to scream, running with feet that were made to stand still in peace. Light is your natural environment. That's where joy grows. That's where purpose becomes clear. That's where love feels safe. That's where conviction turns into transformation. But when you live outside of that environment, you live disconnected, not just from God, but from yourself. And when you lose connection to who you are, you start to attach yourself to anything that feels real. Addictions, approval, noise, performance, temporary highs to silence permanent questions, but the ache remains, because even in counterfeit light, your soul knows it's still in darkness. You can fake happiness. You can dress up your pain. You can scroll, shout, spend, or succeed your way into distraction, but none of it replaces the presence of the real thing, because the presence of God doesn't just illuminate. It reminds you of your design. It reminds you that you were not made for confusion. You were made for communion. You were made for relationship with truth, with love, with Him. That's why sin feels so loud. It clashes with your original code. It feels like static in your spirit because it is. You were wired for holiness, so unholiness doesn't sit well. You were shaped for grace, so guilt doesn't feel right, no matter how long you wear it. And the longer you live away from the light, the more it warps your reflection. You stop recognizing yourself. You stop believing you were ever whole. But the beauty is this: the light still remembers you. It hasn't forgotten your true shape. It hasn't erased your name. It still stands, open and waiting, like the father on the porch in the parable, looking down the road for the prodigal, because God is not just light. He is your light, not just the source of vision, the source of identity. And when you come back to the light, you don't have to reintroduce yourself to Him. He never forgot. You're not a stranger to His love. You're not a guest in His grace. You are home in His light. You don't have to earn your way in. You were born for it, crafted in it, restored by it. So don't let the dark lie to you any longer. Don't let shame keep you living like a foreigner in your Father's house. You were made to walk boldly, not hide quietly, to speak truthfully, not whisper through pain. The light is not your enemy, it's your inheritance. It's not a punishment, it's your portion. And every step toward the light is a step back into your original design. If the light is your natural environment, then why do we run from it? Why do we choose shadows when we were made for clarity? Why do we settle for silence when we were designed for communion? Because sin doesn't just stain, it shifts. It shifts your perception. It twists the truth. It makes the light feel dangerous and the dark feel familiar. It convinces you that exposure will destroy you, that if anyone truly sees you, you'll be rejected. You'll be judged, you'll be alone, so we hide, not always physically, but emotionally, spiritually, internally. We smile on the outside while wrestling with storms on the inside. We perform confidence while privately drowning in fear. Sin doesn't just make you do wrong. It whispers that you are wrong, that your value has been erased, that your calling has been cancelled, that God is disappointed and distant. But those are not His words. They are the echoes of shame, and shame has one goal: to disconnect you from the light. Shame doesn't care if you believe in God. It just wants to make sure you never feel worthy to stand in His presence. It will let you sing about Him as long as you never believe He sees you with love. It's subtle, it's slow, it wraps itself in guilt and presents itself as humility, but it's a lie, and fear partners with shame to keep you paralyzed. What if I confess and no one understands? What if I change and still fail again? What if I let the light in and it only hurts more? So you build emotional fortresses, walls made of silence, doors sealed with pride, rooms locked with excuses, because the pain you know feels safer than the healing you don't trust yet. We start saying things like, "This is just who I am now. People like me don't get free. I'll just carry this silently until the end." But silence doesn't save you. It isolates you, and isolation feeds the darkness, and suddenly what once was a moment of failure becomes a lifestyle of hiding. Not because God rejected you, but because sin and fear convinced you that He would. So you stop praying like you used to. You stop believing like you used to. You stop expecting breakthrough because disappointment feels easier than hope. You choose to avoid the light not because it isn't good, but because you've been lied to about what it does. The serpent didn't tempt Eve with poison. He tempted her with doubt. Did God really say? He didn't have to drag her into sin. He just had to distort her perception of God's heart. That's what sin does. That's what fear does. That's what shame does. It convinces you that God's holiness is a threat instead of a gift, that His light is here to punish instead of purify, that His presence is for the perfect instead of the surrendered. But here is the truth. God never asked you to fix yourself in the dark. He only asked you to come. Come as you are. Come with the mess. Come with the regrets. Come with the parts of you you've tried to hide for years. Because sin cannot survive where light lives, and shame loses its voice in the presence of grace, and fear melts when love becomes louder. So stop treating darkness like your refuge. It's not saving you. It's shrinking you, it's dulling your voice, it's draining your purpose, it's stealing your time, and the longer you stay in it, the more it convinces you that there's no way back. But that's another lie. Because there's always a way back to light, always a door open, always a voice calling, even now. You were not born to live in the shadows. You were not called to carry shame in silence. You were not created to be ruled by fear. You were made for light, and the light is still reaching for you. If sin drove you into the shadows, if shame convinced you to hide, then you must understand this. God's light is not here to destroy you. It's here to restore you. He doesn't turn on the light to embarrass you. He turns it on to rescue you, because he knows how long you've been hiding, how long you've been hurting behind the mask, how long you've smiled for others while silently sinking inside. And when he shines his light, it's not to expose you to the world. It's to expose the lie that you are beyond redemption, the lie that your story is too broken, the lie that your past is too filthy, the lie that your heart is too far gone. But lies cannot stand in the light. They scatter, they shrink, they vanish like smoke, because truth doesn't condemn, it liberates. God's light is not a courtroom spotlight. It's a surgeon's lamp. It doesn't glare to punish. It illuminates to heal. He shines it into the deep places, the wounds you buried under busyness, the pain you masked with pride, the patterns you called personality that were actually protection from past trauma. His light doesn't just touch the surface. It reaches the root, not to shame you for having it, but to pull it out before it poisons you further. He says, I see the bitterness, and I'm not afraid of it. I see the addiction, and I still love you. I see the fear, and I'm not leaving. That's what the light does. It shows you that you are still wanted, still seen, still redeemable. We're afraid of God's light because we project human judgment onto a holy God, but his nature is not like ours. Where we condemn, he cleanses. Where we give up, he restores. Where we remember failure, he sees a future. He doesn't just want to show you your sin. He wants to show you your wholeness on the other side of it. He doesn't point to your scars and say, look what you did. He says, let me show you what I can do through this. When Jesus found the woman caught in adultery, he didn't throw a stone. He threw away the accusation. He didn't ignore her sin. He forgave it, and he didn't leave her where she was. He sent her into new life. That's the light, not cold, not cruel, but precise, powerful, personal. It knows your story, but it won't let your story end in brokenness. Because when God brings you into the light, he doesn't remind you of your failures. He reveals your freedom, and that changes everything. You begin to see yourself differently, not as a mistake, but as a miracle in progress. You stop hiding and start healing. You stop fearing judgment and start trusting grace. And as that light fills you, it starts to change what you crave. You no longer want shadows. You want honesty. You want peace. You want presence, because the light isn't just a place, it's a person. It's the God who says, come to me, all who are weary. Return to me, and I will restore you. Walk in the light as I am in the light, and you will have fellowship with me, not distance, not rejection. Fellowship, the kind of closeness religion can't fake, the kind of love shame can't silence, the kind of peace fear can't reach. And once you taste that light, once you stand in it long enough to feel it settle into your bones, you'll never want the darkness again. Because the light doesn't just show you who God is, it shows you who you are in him, and in that moment you'll realize the light didn't come to punish you, it came to bring you back to life.